good to go.
All right, thank you. At 6:15 p.m., this meeting of the Mountain View Wisman School Board will now be called to order. I quickly want to thank everyone who bore with us to kind of restart things to make sure that we could stream and record appropriately. We will now say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now take a roll call of the trustees.
Ellen Wheeler.
Laura Blakely.
Chris Chain.
Laura Berman.
Devin Conley. Let the record reflect that all the trustees are present. We will now move on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any questions or comments from trustees regarding the agenda?
Question, President Connolly, do we need to make note of the updated personnel report, or do the principal hirings not impact that?
Dr. Rudolph?
Yep. So because it is on the consent, you will, when you approve the consent agenda, you will approve it. Sorry, you're going to approve it with the amended personnel report.
So when we get to the consent agenda, we'll do that. Thank you. Is there a motion from trustees? Oh, hold on. If there are members of the public who would like to address the board about this item, you can raise your hand using the raise hand function in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. I do not see any public comment at this time. Is there a motion from trustees?
So moved.
Move that we second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
On a motion made by trustee Wheeler and seconded by trustee Blakely, the agenda was unanimously approved. We will now move on to item 2. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board concerning items on the closed session agenda. If you would like to comment on any of the 4 items on the closed session agenda this evening, you can raise your hand in Zoom using the raise hand function or press *9 on your phone. Seeing as there is none, the board will now adjourn to closed session. right, I just want to make sure that staff knows we're back out of closed session. They do, okay. We will reconvene open session at 8:08 p.m. No action was taken in closed session. We will move on to the consent agenda, item 5. Are there any questions or comments from trustees regarding the consent agenda? Yes, trustee Chang.
2 items to pull. Pulling the item D, the approval, recognition, and appreciation payments, and pulling the first contract on the Hanover research.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from trustees? All right. We will discuss, I can't believe I always forget the process. We will discuss this first and then vote, or we will vote and then discuss?
I think we can approve the things,
Okay.
all minus other those 2.
All right. So is there a motion?
I
I guess
move-
I need a motion.
Well, I guess I move we approve the consent agenda minus contract 1 on Hanover research and item D on approval, recognition, and appreciation payments.
Okay.
Also have a revised personnel report.
Yes. So can we add that to your motion, trustee
Yes,
Chang?
with the yes, thank you, with the revised personnel report.
Okay. Is there a
Okay.
second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? On a motion made by trustee Chang, amended by trustee Wheeler, and seconded by trustee Berman, the consent agenda with revised personnel contract passes unanimously with the items pulled as presented by trustee Chang.
President Conley.
Yes, sir.
So just a couple items real quick. Spanish interpretation is available for this meeting. If you're using Mac or PC, click on the globe at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're on iPhone or Android, it is in the options menu. Hay interpretación español disponible para esta reunión. Si es usado una Mac o una PC, haga clic con el globo en la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom. Si está en iPhone or Android, está in el menu de opciones. The second thing, now that you've approved the consent agenda with a revised agenda, I just want to welcome our 2 new principals. The first one is Peter Domas. He's the new principal of Landl Elementary. He has served as an assistant principal for the past 4 years at various sites. He has a bachelor's degree from University of Pittsburgh, a master's degree from University of Maryland, and a postgraduate degrees and certificates from the University of Virginia, as well as UC Berkeley, which I know is always happy to recognize. And then the second person, then we'll let both of them speak real quick. Mrs. Leonard, Patricia Leonard, is the new assistant principal at Graham Middle School. She has 10 years of experience in leadership and administration, as well as an extensive background in special ed. She has a master's degree in educational administration, a special education degree from National University, and a bachelor's degree from Cal State University, Chico. So we're happy to have both of them here, and we'll give them the opportunity just to say hello to the crowd.
Mr. Dolmans, if you would like to begin.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you, Devin and Dr. Rudolph. I'm so honored and humbled to be given this opportunity. Mountain View is my home district, so it's super exciting to be working close by and at a school where I might someday send my daughter. I've gotten to spend some time at Landl's over the weekend and just watched my 18-month-old play with the kids, interact with the kids at the different playgrounds. I, of course, took a peek in some of the classrooms and in Heidi's office. It's an absolutely beautiful campus and a beautiful community. And so I'm just super excited to connect with the staff, the students and the families, and even more excited to get into the classrooms and start seeing all the great learning that's taking place. So thank you again for this opportunity. I can't wait to start building relationships with everyone, and really looking forward to this.
I should have said Principal Dolmans, not Mr. Dolmans. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And Assistant Principal Leonard.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be a part of this community. I'm very excited to start working at Graham. Like I mentioned to the board in closed session, I love middle school. I can't wait to start working with these kids again. Very excited to work with Heidi. We haven't met yet, but I've heard great things and can't wait to hit the ground running with her. So thank you again for this privilege.
Thank you so much. Welcome to both of you to the district. We're really excited to have you with the team. All right. And then
you two are more than welcome to leave. You don't have to stay.
Thank you. Good night.
Or you can quietly watch many hours of vibrant discussion. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Trustee Chang.
I guess this maybe that if we do the item D first, I pulled that just perhaps the board president can kind of give the board's appreciation on behalf of this item, for the approval of the recognition and appreciation payments.
Absolutely. Thank you, Trustee Chang. So the board is thrilled to be able to give a $2,000 payment to all of our full-time employees as described in the documents here, who are currently with the district for the incredible undertaking of not just surviving this year in distance learning and then in a different on-campus learning when people came back to school, but making sure that our children continue to thrive during really challenging circumstances. We know that every single person in this district went above and beyond to support our children and our families, and we can't thank you enough. But at least we can give this $2,000 appreciation payment to every single staff person who was full-time during this process. So thank you. I don't know if there are other trustees who want to say anything about that, but it's been an incredible year to see the work of our community and people come together. All right, Trustee Chang, next item.
All right, thank you. Contracts. I pulled the contract. It's just a question for staff on. So this contract, the contract for the $208,000 for equity work. I want to know a little more about the process if other firms were considered to do this work. Kind of how did we end up choosing Hanover?
So you want to ask or answer, or you want me to go?
We actually chose Hanover was based on.
Oh, Ms. Henderson, your audio is spotty. Ms. Henderson, we haven't been able to hear anything.
Is this better?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, excellent. Great. So one of the reasons that we actually chose Hanover to do this particular work is obviously the previous relationship that we've also had with them, having consulted with Hanover over many different projects over the years. They've recently come out with a lot of work around equity, including an equity dashboard, which is a display of disaggregated data. And they've also come out with an equity scorecard. Both items were actually, even before we started looking at Hanover for these services, were items that we were interested in as a district team, partly because they were really wonderful display or a really consumable display of some of the information that we really need as a district in order to create an equity framework. So some of the data structures that they have and ways of disaggregating and displaying the data were really kind of clear references for how we could chart a way forward. And of course, one of our first steps as a district is needing to know and understand the depth and complexity of the issues that we have as a district. And it's not only, I think, for the equity work, but actually, if you look at the strategic plan and all of the interdependencies, based on goal 1, 2, 5, 4, a lot of those goal areas actually rely on the kind of disaggregated data systems that this particular firm is providing. We've worked with other consulting firms previously that do similar work, but this was obviously kind of the most desirable because we already had a relationship with them, and it was definitely fit all of our needs in that way. But I'm happy to answer any other questions too about, kind of how we're going to use the work for the future strategic plan initiatives as well.
I also want to point out that we've had this is our 6th year working with Hanover, and they've done a lot of great work for us. Not just with the LCAP, but also dating back to the analysis of student performance at Mistral. They did a longitudinal study of how kids performed, and we've leaned on them a lot for a lot of our research. And so, and considering the work cadence that we have and the feedback that both Ms. Bauer as well as myself have when we meet with them, just demonstrates that they are a group that we know that we can depend on, and it's a known quantity in terms of how we're going to work with them and sort of what their approach is, and the quality of work is pretty stellar.
I have to say I've been impressed with everything they've produced for the board today. It's been quite, especially coming from having worked in research, they are doing some great work.
I have no more questions, but I have a comment, but I don't know if should I make the comment now or?
Are there any other questions from trustees? Did we go for public comment on the consent agenda? We did.
No, we did not. But we should.
If you're a member of the public and you would like to comment on this item, you can raise your hand in Zoom by using the raise hand function or pressing *9 on your phone. Seeing as there are none, Trustee Chang, your comment?
Thank you. I'm just sharing it with my colleagues that I will be voting no on this measure, but then on this issue. But if it passes the board, I will afterwards. It will have my full support and support with the decision of the majority. But the reason for my no vote is that $208,000 in equity work could be transformative, and there's a lot of local organizations like the National Equity Project that works with San Francisco Unified and a lot of local schools that are doing some organizations that equity is their primary focus. And when I was doing my research on Hanover, they're a quantitative firm. Equity is not their kind of direct focus. This firm out of Virginia, Hanover. So I respect the recommendation of the staff, and I'll support this, but I'll be voting no tonight on it.
All right, are trustees ready for? Trustee, yes.
Just a point of clarification, just real quick. That's the total amount over the 3-year contract. That is not the per year cost.
Trustee Blakely.
Sorry, I can't get my hand up. Is it safe to assume that we did evaluate a couple of different firms in the selection process?
We've looked at other firms, Panorama, EAB, as well as some other ones. Our relationship with them hasn't always panned out the way that we wanted. And so while yes, there are a lot of different firms that do this particular work, at one point we had Panorama that we were working with. At another point we had EAB that we were working with. We've talked, we did reach out to the Equity Project. Their plate was pretty full, and they were, because everybody's moving with it. And so this was, we felt like, considering that we know what the work quality is and that we've never had any issues with, from a data standpoint and the work quality that they bring, we felt like this was the best that we could do in order to meet the board's goals.
Well, I'm happy to rely on staff's recommendation, and I'm glad that you evaluated a couple of different vendors. And I concur that the Hanover work that I've seen has been very good. And I know it's helpful to have a good relationship. Some of the other contracts with other consultants that we've hired for different projects, I know have not gone as smoothly as the ones with Hanover have. So I'm happy that we have a good partner.
I also had not thought about the fact that there are many, many districts across the Bay Area who are all trying to do this work now. We're not alone. And so there would be a big, a big demand for firms to be able to do this work at this moment. And it might actually be hard to get some of the local firms to be able to take it on.
So I guess I have a motion. First motion is to approve the recognition and appreciation payments.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. On a motion made by Trustee Chang and seconded by Trustee Wheeler, the payments are approved as presented.
And then a second motion, a motion to approve the Hanover research contract.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
On a motion made by Trustee Chang and seconded by Trustee Wheeler, the Hanover contract passes with a vote of 4-1, with Trustee Chang voting against. We will now move on to communications. Item 4, we will start with employee organizations. Are there any representatives of employer organizations who would like to address the board at this time? Seeing as there are none, are there any representatives of district committees who would like to address the board at this time? Yes, Trustee Berman and then Trustee Wheeler.
Sorry, it just takes me a minute to unmute myself. So I was at the DLAC meeting on May 10th, and we heard from Director Jeff Chang present on the LCAP goals that the district has to our ELAC leaders. And it was just a really great discussion around what the objectives are. And there was an opportunity to ask clarifying questions and give some ideas. And I really appreciated the discussion around focusing in the next couple of years on our youngest families, so our parents that have the youngest children. Because if you think about our kindergarten families and our first grade families, they haven't had like a real full school year because of the pandemic. So there's just so much that if they don't have any older siblings, those kids, there's just so much that those families come in not really knowing. So really embracing those families and making sure that they understand like the school culture and our district culture. And there was even talk about all the acronyms that exist, like SSTs and IEPs and the DLAC and the LPAC. And like, there's just so much to keep up with. So just really embracing those families that haven't had that full year of experience. And even I think once when you're a kindergarten family, you move on, you can't really absorb all that information. So I think just that talk of having to play the catch up. And there was also just a lot of energy around the ELAC leaders around just building on the capacity that exists in their leadership and helping them reach out to their community to help with engagement too. So it was a really great conversation.
Thank you. Trustee Wheeler?
Yeah, so Trustee Blakely and I both attended the DAC meeting this week, and I imagine the agenda was similar or identical to the one that you're describing, Trustee Berman. We heard from Jeff Chang, we heard from Kathy Bauer, and then we heard from Megan Henderson. And I wanted to say in public here how impressed I was with the facilitation that Megan Henderson did regarding the Stevenson School question, and I was impressed with the DAC members, how seriously they took that, the questions that were brought to them about, should we do something to try to make Stevenson have a more representative school population, and what are some things we could do? And it was fascinating to hear that group of unbiased parents, all school site council members or presidents, just examine this issue fresh. And then there was one who was actually from Stevenson, so that was helpful too. But it was I'm really glad I attended that meeting, and I know that Trustee Blakely was able to attend most of it. So I hope you had a similar impression, Trustee Blakely.
All right, thank you very much, Trustee Wheeler and Trustee Berman and Trustee Blakely. Dr. Rudolph, are there any updates from you?
Yep. So yesterday we entered the yellow tier. I'll be talking about the impact of that tomorrow in our community check-in, as well as just giving a couple quick updates, just general things as we wrap up the year. You know, a question that's come up with a couple of people is whether or not we're going to try to bring more kids in. But I just want to remind everybody that we have 2 weeks and 1 day left for our kids. And one of those is a half day. And then the other, it's not 2 complete weeks because then we also have a holiday built in. And so we are planning for 5 full days of instruction next year. And I'll be talking about what next year looks like, but I think we've already went past the point of no return. Had we entered yellow tier a little bit earlier, I think it would have been a little bit easier for us to pull this off. But, you know, just want to say publicly what I'll say again tomorrow. It's just that it makes more sense for us to continue down the path as we wrap up our testing and as we wrap up the school year, as opposed to try to disrupt the apple cart. So, but I'll be talking more about that tomorrow, just what some of the guidelines are. There are some implications also for staff, turning in vaccination cards and some other things. I just want to make everybody aware of it.
Thank you, Dr. Rudolph. Does that, my understanding from the county guidelines is that workplaces now have to gather a record of who on staff is vaccinated?
Yes, we have 14 days to do it. And so we luckily, we've already started correcting a little bit. Ms. Victor was ahead of the game on that one, but we got to make sure that we turn them all in.
Thank you very much. Yes, Trustee Chen.
Question for Dr. Rudolph. I know that we had one of our school sites as a vaccination site, also with the coordination with President Connolly. Do we anticipate any more of those things happening?
Actually, President Connolly was able to swing another opportunity with Crittenden Middle School, and so we are working on that for 12 to 16-year-olds, and so everybody's, you know, we have multiple hands working. I know Mrs. Gomez has already is working on it too. So we're real excited that President Connolly was able to get that resource for us.
Well, and thank you to our Mayor Kamei and also Joe Smidian's, Supervisor Smidian's office and his policy aide, Matt Savage, and Stanford Medical, because they have really jumped in to help and to try and do this before the end of the school year. So we're going to get everybody taken care of. All right, we will now move on to item 7, community comments. This is the time reserved for community members to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board and administration welcome this opportunity to listen. However, in compliance with the Brown Act, the board is not permitted to take action on non-agenda items. To address the board, please use the raise hand function in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. We do not appear to have any comments at this time. Dr. Rudolph, did we receive any written public comments that were submitted ahead of the meeting?
They should have been emailed to you, but none. There was only one comment about gender neutral bathrooms.
Okay, so we'll okay, thank you. That one does not pertain to this item.
I have a question. Is that an email that has been sent to us?
Nancy, Ms. Rodriguez usually sends out the public comments ahead of time, and I had not seen an email for today.
It was actually sent at 6:11 at the start of the meeting.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, sorry. So there was one that was forwarded at 6:11, and I think I'll look to see when that next one was. So.
Okay, okay, thank you. To clarify, trustees read all of the public comments that are submitted. If they come in so late, will they be let allowed, Dr. Rudolph? Or trustees will review them after the meeting?
We said that we would forward the ones that were emailed in to the trustees, so that we would save time and then allow focus on the people who were actually in the meeting to give the comments. And that would also save staff from having to read the comments. But I'm happy to read them if you want. Actually,
no, it's fine. If the comments were submitted rather late, then we can read them. If they were submitted during the meeting, then we can read them when the meeting concludes. Yes, Trustee Wheeler.
President Connolly, I thought you had cited actually a board norm of that if emails get to us less than 24 hours before a meeting, that those will not be read, and that it's the ones that are mailed to us earlier than that we would potentially read.
Yes, and so my question here was actually, when did those come in? Because I hadn't seen anything, and it sounds like they came in after the start of the meeting, possibly.
so the first one came in May 14th at 4:22 p.m. And it went into our public comments. And then the second one came in. Actually, sorry, the second one just came, it was just to Dr. Crace and myself. So it wasn't actually a public comment. So the last one came in last week, but I forwarded on again.
Yeah.
Okay, Trustee Chang.
If this is related to the construction agenda item, if board members, I see that it was just forwarded to us now. If trustees think they can read it for that item, I think it doesn't have to be read aloud. But if trustees don't think they'll have a chance to read it because we're in a live meeting, then it might to read it out, to have it read to us could be useful so that it could be part of our deliberation.
Trustees, do you feel you'll be able to read it, or do you prefer it be read out loud?
I'd prefer it was read out loud.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, all right, will do. Thank you.
Assuming it's related to tonight's agenda.
It is, it's related to the construction item. We will now move on to item 8, review and action. We will start with item 8A, a nomination for the 2022 CSBA, California School Board Association officers. And actually, Trustee Wheeler, I was wondering if you could talk about this item since it was an agenda item you suggested.
Yeah, so I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to ask our board to be one of the school boards in the state that's going to be nominating someone for California School Board Association Vice President, and that the Vice President candidates will actually be voted on at the CSBA convention at the end of the year. So the person that I am nominating, I'm recommending that our board approve this nomination, is Albert Gonzalez. I've known him since he was elected to the board in Santa Clara, many years ago, and I've informally mentored him ever since. I think he's an excellent school board member. He became a delegate. He was elected as a delegate, I think, the first time he ran. He was selected by his fellow delegates to be regional director for CSBA, and now he has put himself forward to be vice president for CSBA. So I'm hoping that our board will support that nomination.
Thank you. Are there questions from trustees? All right, seeing as there are none, we will go to public comment. If you are a member of the public and you would like to comment on this item, you can raise your hand in Zoom by pressing *9. I'm sorry, by raising your hand with the raise hand function, or you can press *9 on your phone to raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing as there are no public comments at this time, are there comments from trustees?
I wholeheartedly concur. Trustee Wheeler's praise for Mr. Gonzalez. I have not worked with him as closely, but especially during the Zoom year, seeing him at the meetings and listening to the contributions that he makes, I feel like he's a really valuable member, and I will be delighted to see him as vice president of CSBA.
I will also add, I work with Regional Director Gonzalez as a delegate to the California School Board Associations, and he is a remarkable and inspiring leader. I am thrilled that he is willing to take this step. I think it would be wonderful for our region, Region 20, which is Santa Clara County, to have representation at this level in the California School Board Association. I think it would have a real benefit for our district as well as other districts in our county. And I appreciate Trustee Wheeler bringing this to the board. Is there a motion from trustees?
I move that the Board of Trustees nominate Albert Gonzalez for CSBA Vice President.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? On a motion made by Trustee Wheeler and seconded by Trustee Blakely, the board has unanimously voted to nominate Regional Director Albert Gonzalez for Vice President of the California School Board Association.
So what I would like to do is I will email Albert because we've been going back and forth about this, and let him know that our board voted to nominate him. And I'll also share that Mountain View Los Altos High School District also nominated him.
Wonderful, thank you. We will now move on to item 8B. This is board policy number 1312.3, our uniform complaint policy, and we will be hearing from our Chief Human Relations Officer, Tara Vickyard.
Good evening. Thank you very much. So I'm here tonight just to share an updated board policy on uniform complaint procedures. This follows the recommendation of the California School Boards Association and just brings to light a few new and updated state and federal policies, timelines, and clarifies the reporting procedures in our current uniform complaint policy. And so we'll bring the policy to you tonight and ask you to approve as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Vickyard. Are there questions from trustees? All right, seeing as there are none, we will move to public comment. If you are a member of the public and you would like to comment on this item, you can press *9 on your phone or raise your hand in Zoom using the raised hand function. Seeing as there are no public comments, are there comments from trustees? Or a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve board policy number 1312.3, Uniform Complaint Procedures, UCP, policies and procedures at first reading as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? On a motion made by Trustee Blakely and seconded by Trustee Wheeler, the board votes unanimously to approve the update to board policy number 1312.3, the uniform complaint policy as presented. Thank you, Ms. Our next item is item 8C. It is the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan, and we will hear from Superintendent Rudolph as well as Jeff Chang, our Director of Federal, State, and Strategic Programs.
All right, so if the board would indulge me for a second, we've actually talked about this multiple times. So instead of going through the presentation again, I think it's best served just because we have a longer construction update. For me, just to give a quick overview of what in front of you, and then ask the board to go ahead and approve it, knowing, as I said before, that a lot of the meat of it will be filled in. So as we've identified earlier today, earlier this month, and we've talked about this over the last subsequent meetings, there are 5 goal areas that we are focused on: professional development, social emotional learning, the digital divide, extended learning, as well as targeted tutoring. In each one of these processes, we have sort of an approach where there are some district-wide strategies. For instance, MVWSD Connect, which is our CBS program. And then we have individual site strategies, which will be sort of for lack of a better word, a block grant funding that is given to sites to focus on social emotional needs as identified in their needs assessment plans, as well as extended learning that could incorporate SEL as well as address that. And that is different than the district-wide extended learning approaches that we may use, as well as the targeted tutoring that we will do. What you will see, though, in the plan are pretty much the larger district expenditures that we know of. And then we will take the totality of that and subtract out and come up with an amount that is either per student or per site that we will give there. And so we're working on finalizing the numbers and then setting up the process that the sites will use in order to get to acquire or to be able to use those funds. But that is going to take us a little bit more time. And this really is just about getting this plan in by the 1st of June. And so we're sort of under a time crunch. But instead of going back through each one of these items again and talking about how we got there, I think we did a pretty extensive presentation the last time, just going over the needs assessment, and all that information is there. And for this, so the staff is asking that you approve the expanded learning opportunities grant plan. And I do want to point out that not all of the funds that we have received from the federal as well as from the state are captured in here. This really just captures the monies that were from the expanded learning opportunities grant plan, which is due to the state. So just want to give that overview, but staff is asking for your approval of the plan, knowing that we have done an extensive amount of engagement, both at the site as well as the district level, to get feedback on this, and are incorporating that into our.
Thank you, Superintendent Rudolph. Are there questions from trustees? We will take public comment on this item. If you are a member of the public and you would like to comment on this item, you can raise your hand in Zoom by using the raise hand function or by pressing *9 on your phone. All right, seeing as there are no public comments, are there comments from trustees? Or a motion?
I move the Board of Trustees approve the Extended Learning Opportunity Grant Plan as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? On a motion made by Trustee Chang and seconded by Trustee Wheeler, the board unanimously approves the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan as presented. We will now move on to item 9A. This is a construction update of Phase 1 projects with a presentation from our Chief Business Officer, Dr. Westover. Or Dr. Rudolph.
I had to make her a co-host, so I apologize.
Thank you.
All right, it's working now. Good evening, trustees. For the members of the public that are here to enjoy the update, we have an updated presentation that's been posted on the website, as well as an updated construction timeline. So we are originally scheduled to give this presentation back in early April. A lot has changed in over a month and a half, so we have an updated presentation and updated timeline. I also have Jason Cave with me tonight if there are any specific questions about construction. Okay. All right, so Measure T Phase 1 construction update. So we always ground everything that we do in our board goals. So our strategic plan for 2021, Goal 5, resource stewardship, was to make sure that students, staff, and community members have access to various resources such as technology and facilities. Our updated strategic plan for 2027, Goal Area 5, is equitable distribution of resources that support student success. So part of this is to ensure facilities and resources equitably serve all students. And this ties into our master facility plan. The board had asked for us to talk a little bit about the master facility plan and the process we went through to create it, because it's informing our priorities for our bond program. So I wanted to give the public and trustees that weren't here when we created this some background on why we have priority 1 items and how they were determined. So the master facility plan was a board-approved 10-year master facility plan that accommodated growth while prioritizing the work ahead based on needs and input. The plan was approved on December 12th, 2019, prior to Measure T passing. And one of the reasons we wanted to have a master facility plan prior to the bond measure passing was to make sure that if it passed, we could hit the ground running with projects. And we weren't stuck debating what needed to come first. The new MFP continues the planning efforts of the former 2010 plan, and it sets a solid foundation for student growth and upgrades to infrastructure. And it informs all of our projects for Measure T. For the feedback, all schools stakeholders met to discuss the master facility plan. We talked about a variety of different things. Potential solutions to the growth that we'll be seeing over the next 10 years. New schools in North Bayshore and East Wistman. We're using leased properties, expanding capacity of our existing schools, possibly redrawing school boundaries, or doing grade level schools. We also included feedback from community in an online thought exchange. The MFP describes how, as a district, we'll modernize and utilize existing campuses for short safety and operational efficiency, short-term growth, and long-term growth. So where we left off with Measure G. So our Measure G passed in 2012 for $198 million. We had other funding sources that helped us do all of the things that we were able to accomplish, including our certificate of participation and lease revenue. So we had an available budget of $264 million. However, our facility plan documented $422 million worth of capital projects. So we were not able to meet everything that was in our previous master facility plan with Measure G. This is a table that shows some of the things where we're picking up from Measure G with Measure T. Things to note are things like HVAC, things that you'll notice that are on our priority 1 item list for Measure T. So now we're jumping into Measure T. On March 3rd, 2020, the bond Measure T could be spent on growth, safety, operational efficiency, short-term growth solutions, staff housing, and the repayment of the Vargas Elementary construction, or our COP. Bond language is limited to 75 words and is broadly written to incorporate any projects that may be needed. So a good example of why bond language is written broadly is because sometimes needs arise within a district, and if it's not in the bond language, we can't use it for that purpose. So earlier, the board decided to add bipolar ionization because it was a need that the district had due to current conditions. Because the bond language was broad enough, we were able to accomplish this. So what could our bond purchase us? So these are some infographics that we used prior to the passing of Measure T. So to prioritize short-term growth, we could add a 2-story addition to Landl's, which is part of our priority 1 items right now, extra permanent portable at Huff, which is happening this summer, storage at Castro, Stevenson, and Vargas. So what are our facility priorities? What does it mean for our schools? Even though the master facility plan identified many projects to be done in the next 10 years, we have limited resources with our bond capacity. So it prioritizes safety, operational efficiency projects, and has plans for all schools. This is also an infographic that we used when going out for Measure T to show all of the priority 1 projects that we were going to hit at each of our school sites. You'll notice that we have solar, we have security, as well as restrooms at some of our sites. So now I would like to walk you through where we are right now for our active Measure T projects by site. These are most of these items, actually all of these items will be starting this summer. So at Bub, we're starting with our perimeter controls. On-site work is scheduled to begin in June and will take place on and off over the summer as they move around to our different campuses. And then our electrical work is likely to push into September and October. Solar will also start at Bub. It's planned to begin in June and completed by November 2021. Areas where work is taking place will be fenced off to protect students, and the areas include spaces under the arrays and in the parking lot where EV charging stations are being installed. Our summer work, so June through mid-August, will be the heavy work. It'll be demolition, steel erection, the PV module installation, and trenching for the electrical. The fall work, when students are back, is mainly electrical installation and installation of the car charging station and asphalt paving and landscaping repair. So the idea is that we're doing all of the heavy work in the summer to reduce the disruption to students and then finishing it out in the fall. We also have an HVAC project at Bub. So the duration is June through August, and the work will take place in the mechanical closets in all classrooms, offices, MURs across the entire campus. Have a diagram of the Bub perimeter controls. Wanted to point out a few things that have changed over time. So this was a pretty iterative process of meeting with the school principal, getting feedback from staff, and also getting feedback from community. Initially, at Bub, there was not a thoroughfare. So now this allows to have a thoroughfare with gates at the end of each hallway. This is what solar looks like at Bub. At Castro, so some of these items as I go through are the same for every school site. So I'm not going to read each of the bullet points, and I'll just talk through generalities. So at Castro, we're also doing perimeter controls. We also have a solar project. At Castro, we also have a paving project and a park restroom project. The park restroom project is not scheduled to begin until November through February, but we wanted to talk about it here so the board knew that it was coming. This is a diagram of the Castro perimeter controls. Wanted to point out that we added a gate near as close to the tot lot as we could. This was something that was requested by the community. When we met with the architect to talk about trying to put it closer to where the tot lot was, one of the issues we run into is we need to make sure that it's accessible, which would mean that we would need to have a pathway that would run through the grass, and knowing that the grass space is highly coveted at Castro, the closest place where we could have a path of travel was right up here. But we did want to honor the community feedback of wanting to have a gate closer to the tot lot. This is the solar at Castro. And this is where the paving project will take place at Castro, the back parking lot area. At Crittenden, we'll also be doing perimeter controls, and we'll be upgrading the public address system. So it's similar to what we have across all of our campuses. So it will begin in June and be completed by July. At Crittenden, we also have a marquee installation at the back of the school, because at the back of the school is where a good portion of the students arrive each day. So we want to make sure that students and parents are able to get information about what's happening at the school. We also have an electrical upgrade project and solar. Solar will not take place at Crittenden over the summer because they do have some rooftop arrays which will need to go through DSA for approval. This is a diagram of the Crittenden perimeter controls. A picture of where the new marquee will be going. At Graham, we're doing perimeter controls, also the solar project, and HVAC. This is a diagram showing the perimeter controls at Graham. And the solar arrays at Graham. At Huff, we have perimeter controls scheduled to go in, as well as solar and an HVAC project. We also have a portable project at Huff. Pending DSA approval, construction will take place from August through September 2021. Summer work will include demolition, utility installation, and excavation for the new building foundation. Fall work will include the placement of the buildings on weekends or an off day for school, asphalt patching, and final connections for the buildings. So this is a diagram of the Huff perimeter controls and of the solar. This is a diagram showing where the Huff portable location will be. The location was determined between information from the architect as well as feedback from the school site. At Landl's, we'll be doing perimeter controls as well as a solar project, an HVAC project, and our park restroom project. This is a diagram of the Landl's perimeter controls. Some information that came from feedback from the community was making sure that we had one fence line. Initially, we were planning to have the original homeowner fence line with district fence line, but now this is only going to be one fence line and we won't have a double. We also added a gate near the playground. Diagram of Landl solar. At Mistral, we'll have perimeter controls and solar, as well as our park restroom project. We also have the upgrade of the administration building. The project will take place from June 2021 to August. So this is going to be a very tight timeline to redo an entire office building, as well as the HVAC project at Mistral. This diagram is the same one that we looked at with Castro. And the solar is the same as well. And here is a diagram of the Mistral office. At Mauna Loma, perimeter controls, we'll have an update at the next board meeting about the perimeter controls at Mauna Loma. We do have a work group that's been working on it. Solar will be installed during summer of 2022, since a portion of the arrays are going on the roof and will need to go through DSA. The HVAC upgrades will also take place next summer because Mauna Loma has many units that need to be moved from the ground to the roof, which require DSA approval. At Stevenson, perimeter controls and solar project. And here are the diagrams. At Therakoff, we're doing perimeter controls and a paving project, electrical work, as well as solar. For the electrical work, it's pending PG&E and DSA approval. At this point, we anticipate that the site work will start in late summer. The power shutdown for the PG&E power relocation is tentatively scheduled for December. because we don't have the schedule from PG&E yet. So what we're doing is doing the construction over the summer, and then in December, once we get it scheduled with PG&E, we'll switch it over so there's no disruption to the students. Solar will also take place in the summer of 2022 due to the rooftop arrays needing DSA approval. Here's some diagrams. And this is some of the paving project that will be taking place at Therakoff. This is showing where the electrical work will take place. So most of these, actually all of these diagrams should look very familiar to the board because we've brought all of these to you for schematic design approval. At Vargas, we have our solar project and the marquee installation, as well as a parking cover. The parking cover project will take place from December 2021 to February 2022, pending DSA review and approval. If the board remembers, we ended up going through DSA because if we used, we wanted to make sure to preserve as much parking as we could. It's a diagram showing where the Vargas solar will be going and the marquee sign and the carport. And then quickly, as we were running through, I realized that the Bub diagram that I showed the board had the alleyway behind the back. We actually changed the diagram based on community feedback. I think it must have been too small. As I was squinting, putting my presentation together. So it's actually, so the alleyway is closed off. And I can pull up a picture if the board is interested in seeing. Updates on projects not taking place in summer 2021. So the storage at Vargas, Castro, and Stevenson, we investigated using a prefabricated building, but due to limitations with placement, we'll continue to explore options with an architect. Placement at Vargas and Castro were especially challenging due to the size of the campus and requirements for fire lanes and a 20-foot distance required from buildings. So we could get the storage buildings on campus, but they were in very awkward places. So we'll be working with an architect to try to move this project forward. Other updates on projects not taking place this summer, HVAC. So for sites that did not have planned HVAC work, bipolar ionization will be installed in summer of 2022. Site lighting will have a feedback presentation to the board on the June 3rd meeting, which is our next meeting. The same thing for field restrooms. And for surveillance cameras, we are planning with a consultant and we'll begin the planning process over the summer and into the next year, and plans will come to the board. We had some cost savings and items. I wanted to talk about some of our cost savings and some items that are not covered by Measure T. So because we had that priority one list item and we are ready to go as soon as the bond passed, we were able to take on many projects much sooner than the master facility plan had planned, which resulted in cost savings. The district was able to add projects through the Board of Trustees approval to the priority one item list, such as bipolar ionization and the carport at Vargas. Currently, there's $17.6 million in funds that are unallocated for priority one items. So what won't be covered by this bond is the long-term growth options, such as building new elementary schools in North Bayshore, East Westman, or Terabella, and reconfiguring middle schools to add seats. So we're expecting growth within the next 10 to 20 years of about 2,448 students in K-8. Are there any questions?
Trustee Wheeler.
Yeah, presentation that, I don't know if you already said this at the beginning, so if you did and I didn't hear it, let me know. But the presentation that I have that was in the board materials is a presentation from April 1st. So it's not the presentation that we saw tonight. So will you send us that tonight's presentation?
Absolutely. It's also posted for the public on the website right now.
And then also, while I have the floor, I am interested in seeing that Bub revision that you described.
You got it.
That's what I was going to ask as well. And I did pull the presentation up from the website. It's there.
Give me just a moment.
Yeah, this is from the board materials.
Right. But it's on the website now, the updated one.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that it was updated. Okay, here we go. Here is the Bub diagram. So initially we had it, the alleyway open for people to go through. And now you'll notice that the fence line goes across the alleyway here. And we have a 20-foot access gate here. And this was based on the community feedback.
So is that, can people walk there, or is that just to close off the cars?
So during off hours, people can walk through because the gates will be open, but during school hours, it would be closed. There's a vehicle gate here. So when MOT or child nutrition needs to make deliveries to the MUR, or if a fire truck needs to go through, there's gates that open. So you can still drive through. It doesn't change the functionality at all.
I think I saw Trustee Chang had a question.
Two quick questions. For the in the previous board presentation about the lighting, which is coming back in the next meeting, can the board get access to the photometric study that was the district had on the light?
Of course.
And the second quick question is, any update on teacher housing with Fort Bay? Like, have they had any update based on kind of just the housing climate and things for us?
Yep. So we have actually seen an increase in the cost because the cost of lumber has went up 300%. So the project, actually, the unallocated funds that Dr. Westover was talking about actually will need to cover the increase in teacher housing. So we're currently working with that and finalizing the land lease deal. They have secured their bids, and so they are ready to go to approval to the city. We need to reach out to the city because the city has not moved on their part of their agreement. So we need to double check whether or not that is still a desire of theirs, or if this is, if we're simply moving through with the project on our own.
Trustee Berman.
Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Westover. I was just, when you popped up the map for the fencing, the perimeter control around Castro, I noticed that the fence along Latham sort of looks like it's a little windy. Will it basically go where the current fence is? I feel like the fence that currently exists runs pretty straight across, or will it really sort of have that curved look to it?
It will really have the curved look to it. So initially, our initial thought process was to use the current fence line, but because of where the pathway was, we weren't able to do that. So now we're following the pathway.
Thanks for reminding me. And can you also remind me that for DSA approved, I know that for HVAC, there's some that need DSA approval and some that don't. Can you just quickly remind me and anyone else who needs that reminder of what's the difference? Like, why would some need DSA approval and not others?
Sure. So at Mauna Loa, for example, we're moving the HVAC units from the ground up to the roof. So most of our schools have HVAC units on the roof to keep them kind of away from kids and use all the space we have available. So because we're moving them onto the roof, we need DSA approval for that.
And that just takes a little longer, right?
It does.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right, we will move on to public comment on this item. If you're a member of the public and you would like to address the board regarding this item, you can raise your hand in Zoom using the raised hand function or by pressing *9 on your phone. We do not appear to have any public comments other than the comment that was sent in to trustees. And we are going to have that comment read aloud because we received it through our own channels during the meeting and wanted to make sure we all had time to hear it. Dr. Rudolph, will you be reading it with a timer?
Yep, give me 1 second. I'm pulling the timer up as well as the email.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. Dear trustees, my name is Audrey Sagid. My pronouns are she, her, and her. I am an 8th grader at Crittenden Middle School, and I'm writing today to address the issue of adding gender-neutral multi-stall bathrooms to our school campuses. I believe this is an important step because there are people who don't feel comfortable in specified gender restrooms. It should be a top priority to make sure students feel comfortable using restrooms without feeling the struggle to pick a gender-based bathroom. Students should also be able to feel safe when using a restroom to relieve themselves. Even though I am a cisgender person who has never struggled with choosing a bathroom, I believe people who want to hear my perspective on gender-neutral bathrooms, but I am in no way saying that everyone's opinion will match mine. As a 14-year-old girl, I would not feel safe or nor uncomfortable if I were to use a bathroom that lets anyone of any gender in. More so that it makes me comfortable knowing that everyone can use the bathroom without the burden of choosing gendered restrooms. Of course, I would need to need the bathrooms to still provide period products and different urinals for everyone, but those are basic needs of a restroom. Overall, I believe that it should be prioritized that gender neutral bathrooms should be installed because of the basic needing right. Thank you for reading, and please consider my opinion. From Audrey Sagid.
Thank you, Dr. Rudolph. Are there comments from trustees? Trustee Chang.
Thank you. 3 comments. Actually, first one maybe is a question and follow up after Audrey's comment to the board. It was in such a really appreciated her email there. What is our current situation with gender neutral bathrooms in our schools? So what is our current setup for?
By law, and we are in compliance with the law, and we have been since 2017. Every school has gender neutral bathrooms on campus.
And is that
what
like
we do not have is right? We do not have stalled bathrooms where you take all the boys stalls out and you rip out the urinals and you make it unisex or gender neutral at every single one. And part of that's about the regulations also that are required for DSA with the number of stalls that we have to have per the projected population. So doing that will require extensive work, and the board would need to allocate a sufficient amount of funds to go in and to change all the bathrooms.
Thank you. And thank you, Audrey, for that comment to the board. The second question had to do with the map on for Castro, with the fencing that extends onto the Mistral side. Like right now, usage where the infant park is right on Latham, a lot of families kind of cut right through there because the fencing doesn't extend in that area. Right now it's open. I have a concern that if we close off that, if we look on the map on that right side, so there's a gate on the left side where the portables are. But on the right side, now the fence curves all the way back to the campus. I'm afraid it's going to discourage usage of the field in a community where open space is a premium. I noticed on the Landl's map, they have a park area where there's a gate that goes right into their grass park. So like, I don't know if it's an issue of funding, but like if there was some way where even if we had to spend extra money in order for there to be a gate access next to where the infant park is, I think it would match usage, because otherwise I think a lot of families, especially in a community where everyone's being really trying to be respectful of the school's property, I think once they see a fence there, they'll just stop using it in a community that really needs a field. So I didn't know if there was some way that on that right side, something closer to the street because just walking all the way, I used to live on 1815 Latham right across from Castro for years, and I just think that some people won't use it. And then the last comment is just kind of following up on the language about the science and art in our ballot statement. I recognize the ballot statement is written to be inclusive, but also I think a lot of voters have this impression that there's a priority list, so that if an item gets top billing, that it's something to be surely covered. And in my assessment, I think that there is actually a current deficit in science facilities. I think that it's so amazing that we have science teachers on assignment now. I mean, that decision, the board was really exciting that we have teachers assigned to do STEM. But in every school I've ever worked at, when you have science classrooms, there's facility cost to do exciting science labs, because whether it be safety equipment, thin sill-out chemical drains, even durable science equipment that it would be justified under a bond as long-term use. So I'm still uncomfortable that we said science on there, and where voters would assume that we covered it, and especially when I think there is a deficit in that, and that because we've never had science teachers until this board made that decision to do that, I think now it's appropriate time to match that with facilities in the rooms that they use. So I'm really uncomfortable that we have not in any of our priorities. Actually, voters think it's somewhere in the priorities, but it's not on any priority list to do any funding on STEM, science and art. And that worries me. Thank you.
Trustee Chang, I'd like to talk a little bit about the path at Castro, just because I really want the public to know that we heard what they asked for, and we wanted to do as much as we could to provide that access. But we all, it's always balancing, not wanting to take away field space. So Jason is on the line. Jason is able to speak a little bit about kind of if he can unmute himself. Let me see. I think I can ask him to. A little bit about the requirements that we have for DSA. Jason, are you able to unmute?
Yeah, I'm here.
Dr. Westerberg, can you pull up the slide so we can see? When I was trying to pull it up when Trustee Chang was talking about it, and I was a little bit confused.
Absolutely. Give me just a moment.
Thank you.
All right. Can you see it now?
And Trustee Blakely, right now on the right side where those trees are, that's not fenced right now. So right now on the right side, you can cut into the fields from the right side, but this green fence would have that.
Yeah, and part of it is we were trying to balance making sure this was open all day for the public use.
So the issue we run into, Trustee Chang, is anytime we put in a man gate, it's got to be ADA accessible. So we have to have a concrete or asphalt path of travel. It's got to have the proper ADA slopes. That way anyone in a wheelchair has the same access as anyone not. So putting it in the middle of, where it's open now at Castro, we'd have to build a concrete or asphalt walkway out there that's ADA compliant. And to do that, we'd either have to route it around towards the kindergarten building at Castro, which is essentially where the new gate is now, or we'd have to cut directly across the field. And given that field is so small, there's not an area to cut across the field. As to your point on the Landl site, that's not a compliant gate either. I need to check with the architect, to be honest with you, to see how they got that one through. But if there was an exemption or something like that they were able to use, we could certainly look into that at Castro as well.
Yeah, because could we put up the Landl's map?
I actually think it's related to slope, Trustee Chang. Yeah. So because I live across from the Latham site, the Castro Mistral site, that area where the fence isn't there that a lot of people do use to walk across is a small hill. Whereas Landl's is flat. So I'm wondering I don't know, but I'm wondering if having to change the grade on that slope is the issue, whereas Landl's doesn't have a slope, it's flat, but
if that's the issue, land can be flat, right? But if we pulled up if the trustees look at the Landl's map, they have a gate on a similarly configured. Perhaps there's a kind of if that's flat, but if it's just issue of flattening, I just for our school kind of in our most diverse community, I just would kind of, if there is, and if there's not, I appreciate the effort, but if there's something we can do to make, because park is a premium. I know, President Connolly, you live in that neighborhood too. Park is a premium.
I asked for this same, like, this is what I brought up in the community comment or the community input meeting as well. And I brought it up with Dr. Westover as well. So it's something that I have really cared about and been concerned about as well. There is a drainage grate at the bottom of that slope as well. So whether or not the field could be regraded, given that there is a sewer access there and drainage, is probably a lot more complicated than we realize. I would love to know if that's actually what's going on, if it's about the slope versus Landl's does not have a slope. And I'd like to make sure that Landl's is compliant. If I
do want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that as a result of building Castro, unlike Landl's, one of the things that we now have to have are natural egresses. And so part of the reason why you now have a slope and sort of the berm is because that is part of DSA code, which wouldn't have been in place. And Jason can talk about this a little bit more. That was not in place when Landl's obviously was built. And so if you notice, even Stevenson sort of has these natural buffers that have to be created. And that's part of, so what they did was, because I remember this debate when we were working on Measure G, the field was a lot flatter, but in order to compensate for the new site, they had to create the burn and they had to slope it off a little bit more. But Jason, I don't know if you want to discuss a little bit more of that.
That berm and that slope does contribute to the drainage off of that field. Everything kind of slopes to that low spot where you see the storm drain inlet there, and actually below that is what's called a French drain, which is a longer perforated pipe buried under the ground, which collects the water there. So I mean, it would be quite an undertaking to remove. To grade that area, you have to remove a lot of soil there, and you'd have to pretty much redo all the drainage in that area. However, the walkway that we're talking about does have handrails, which makes it a compliant walkway. That's why we're able to have the pedestrians walk from the tot lot up towards the Castro building. So that is a compliant pathway there. It's entering into the campus where we also need it compliant, which is that there's an asphalt pathway there adjacent to the kindergarten building at Castro, which is where the traffic is being funneled. As to Landl's, like I said, I would have to go back to the architect and see how they got that one through, because technically that should fall in the same category as Castro and not be compliant.
If I may then suggest maybe an easier a compromise solution to this is if we can be extra abundant on the signage for Castro and multilingual signage to guide people to where the gate is. I mean, maybe even if we go even beyond signage, that path where you just talked about with the handrail, even just kind of like even color painting the pathway could, from a user perspective, invite people to make that extra walk to the back to the gate. So maybe those would be some cheap ways to make sure that the community knows that the park is still available to them after hours, so that if with both multilingual signage and some playful coloring of the path to invite people just to make that walk towards the school on the right side. Thank you.
We do have multilingual signage that is going up. It's already in the works, and I believe Dr. Westover, do you want to talk about which languages it's already for?
Sure. We have right now we have a draft. It's in Spanish, Vietnamese, Cantonese, and those 3 languages.
And I would just add that if you look into perhaps looking at some coloring the pathway and things, like there's a lot of research on how giving certain colors makes people walk that way and things. But thank you so much for entertaining these comments.
Sure.
Can I ask why not Mandarin?
I'm sorry, Mandarin too.
Are there any further comments from trustees? Trustee Berman.
So thank you, Dr. Westover, for holding all of these community meetings. I've tried to participate in as many as I can, and just being so willing to answer and ready to answer so many different questions. And I think that if we can continue to make sure we communicate with the neighborhood and the community in the way that we have, I think that would be really terrific. So I appreciate the work that you're doing to keep everyone informed.
I agree. And I'd like to thank you for the presentation as well. And I have attended some of those meetings, especially as we've moved on to restrooms and lighting. And sometimes one person shows up and doesn't have any questions. And sometimes maybe 5 people show up, but they see the presentation and they don't have questions or comments or feedback either. But I still think it's worth doing because it is a part of public input and it gives the community an access point to the work. So I really appreciate the time that our public information officer, Shelley Hausman, and Corinne Mitchner, who is also on that team, and Dr. Rudolph, everyone has put into building out this broader community input process. It is meaningful and important, and I think it also provides full transparency for the community.
You're here.
Enjoy them.
All right, if there are no further comments from trustees, we will move on to our next item. Which is item 10, board updates. Trustee Wheeler.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to yours, President Conley. I sent the trustees and the superintendent and Megan Henderson a news story today that's related to work that we've been doing in our district, particularly our latest, the talk for Asian American Pacific Islanders. And I don't think this is a political story. It's President Biden signs a bill addressing hate crimes against Asian Americans, and the bill passed 94-1 in the US Senate.
Thank you, Trustee Wheeler. Now I feel a little bit of pressure. I hope I make the update that you're expecting me to make and I didn't forget something. This morning, I was a part of a panel that was hosted by Canopy on greening the outdoor classroom. And that video is going to be available on their website. It was a really interesting and fruitful conversation. There were over 100 participants and some great questions. And then next Thursday on May 27th, from 3 to 4 p.m., I will be part of a panel hosted by the Silicon Valley Education Foundation on digital equity and inclusion. My fellow panelists will include Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, Mayor Sam Liccardo, and the Executive Director of Sacred Heart, Pancho Guevara. It'll also be moderated by Sunny Wright McPeak, who is the President and CEO of the California Emerging Technology Fund. I am honored to be able to participate. I feel a little, we'll just say I'm definitely the shortest person on that ranking, but I'm thrilled to be there and to hear from everyone and participate. And I hope that people will be able to attend.
So the item that I particularly was interested in.
You're going to have to remind me, Trustee Wheeler. I feel like I forgot.
It's so long ago. Delegate Assembly.
Oh, thank you. I was elected as a delegate to the California School Board Association's Delegate Assembly. Thank you, Trustee Wheeler. And I attended the Delegate Assembly convening. It was an all-weekend conference last weekend. It started on Friday and went all the way through Saturday and Sunday. It was fascinating. We had updates on school funding and budgets at the federal and the state level, as well as we did a lot of sharing about the different needs that districts are encountering as they plan for the fall. I am happy to say that having heard from people from all over the state, trustees from all over the state, I am incredibly proud of the work this district has done. We have been out in front, getting our kids connected to the internet, getting distance learning. The day-long distance learning that we've had with live instruction is something that many places found impossible to do. So the quality of our distance learning was really head and shoulders above. And the planning that we've already put in for the fall is just certainly on par, if not far ahead of, I don't want to all of our fellow districts are doing great work too. But I'm especially proud of the work that our district team is doing.
And thank you for representing us.
It's my
Here.
honor. Trustee Blakely.
Just have one short update. I've been involved with the Chamber of Commerce in their business interests and public policy meetings for quite some time. And I'm very pleased to announce that our own Superintendent Rudolph has been elected or nominated as been named the outstanding, or is receiving, I can't talk tonight, the outstanding contribution to remote learning award. And it's well-deserved. Dr. Nellie Meyer is also earning one, but I'm really proud of Dr. Rudolph and the work that his whole team and our whole district has done. It's super well-deserved, so kudos.
Wonderful. Yes, agreed. It's wonderful news. We'll move on to item 11, items for future agendas. Dr. Rudolph, were there any items submitted for future agendas?
Nope.
All right, thank you. And then our future board meeting dates, we only have, oh, Trustee Chang. Yes, sir.
A question for the future meeting, the June 3rd. I know last time when we did when we had reclassification ceremonies and during this pandemic, we did some video work to congratulate the kids. Is there anything, does staff think there's anything they will want the board's help for graduation? And if so, would that June 3rd meeting be in time? Or I don't know if they had any thoughts that they'll need us before then.
I know they've started, I had to do a speech for the commencement video, but it is an excellent question. Will there be, that video may already be made, Trustee Chang, I don't know. Do we need to do anything as a board at that June 3rd meeting or before then to support any commencement activities? I guess that's a question for Ms. Hausman if she's on, or Dr. Rudolph.
Yep, I mean, the video will be finalized by then. Ms. Hausman, I think we've already done all the work. I think it's just in production stage now.
That's correct. But I would add that, many of the sites are having drive-by ceremonies. And while they're informal, I'm sure they would love to see you out there. So I can make sure that I can give you a list of those times and dates. And so if you can stop by and share in the excitement, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So we have June 3rd and June 17th, and then the board will recess for the summer and come back in August for the new school year and give our district office staff hopefully a little bit of a break. With that note, at 9:35 p.m., I will adjourn this meeting of the Mountain View Isman School Board. Don't get used to that time, trustees. Our next two are going to be pretty big, so take a nice evening tonight.